All right, round 23, Sunday, August something. The Eagles take on Carlton at Optus Stadium at 7:40 a.m. in the UK, which is the time I will be streaming. That'll be on the True Footy YouTube channel, so go check it out if you want to come watch the game along with us. Tell you what, this game's got me curious. There's, I'm excited for every Eagles game, but there's a particular sense with this game. I can't wait to hurry up and get there. And there's a bit of morbid curiosity that transcends normal Eagles games that I've always looked forward to anyway. There's a sense of like, what is going to happen in this game? There's a real sense of intrigue, and it's more to do with the opposition than it is to do with us this week. So we're playing Carlton, and if you somehow missed it, Carlton are missing 17 players. They have been decimated to a level that we have become very familiar with. Of course, for us, it happened at the start of both seasons in 22 and 23, so not quite the same in my opinion. But in terms of the 22 they're going to put out there, they are severely depleted. And that intersects us at a very interesting time where we've just come off two galvanising wins that have inspired a little bit of belief amongst the playing group and, of course, the supporters as well. And I think we played quite well against the Gold Coast Suns, and I think against North, we didn't do it often enough, but we were lucky to some extent that North dropped off. And I don't want to take away from the win. It was more just speaking to the fact that it wasn't a comprehensive four-quarter performance that saw us win against North. But that doesn't mean it won't have benefits in terms of inspiring a bit of belief going into this game. I think the morale at West Coast is obviously going to be a lot higher, and that in itself is a big benefit and then boosts our chances of winning this game. Final home game of the year, 250th for Cripps, farewell game for Andrew Gaff. I'll probably do a separate video for Andrew Gaff's farewell. But there's a bit of buzz going into this game from a West Coast point of view. And for Carlton, there is so much negativity going into this game around where their season is, not only for the injuries that they've sustained. Their performance last week against Hawthorn, regardless of the injuries, was alarming. And obviously it comes off the back of about 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 performances where they've been poor, quite poor, and very much let their season slip from being 11-4 and in a position to potentially play in a grand final this year. That seems all but over. So the effect that will have on Carlton is interesting. Obviously, there's the huge handicap they're going to face with so many of their players, which I'll get into specifics shortly. So many of those players missing really does weaken their chances logically, right? But I also am conscious of this possibility that sometimes teams with their backs against the wall, and with a lot of players playing in this game, probably playing for contracts, and the idea that so many teams bounce back and have a response when shit hits the fan, makes me a little bit cautious for this game. So if I'm not mistaken, I think we've just swung into favouritism. The last time I looked at the odds, we were $1.88. Carlton were $1.92 to win this game. And I don't remember the last time we started a game favourites. Can you? When was the last time? Did we maybe start favourites against North early this year? Maybe we did. But that would have been wrong because we lost that game. So this game on paper, like a few months ago, even 4 weeks ago, would have presented as an absolute stinker fest. And now it could be one of the more intriguing battles of the round because of the impact it's going to have on finals. We're going to have Fremantle fans hoping we win, which is hilarious. So I'm torn. Do I want to ruin this season or do I want to win? I definitely want to win. So I'm cautiously optimistic for this game, dare I say it. And I didn't tip us on just the tips. Now, is that me just talking down my team because every time I talk my team up and expect them to win, they lose? No, I genuinely think we're going to lose. No, I'm kidding. We're going to lose. Nah, stop it, Jesse. All right, come on. Of course, I can't help but reflect on every time that I've talked West Coast up this year or expected us to do well. We've been butt slammed. And, I simultaneously don't want to do that again. But on the other hand, I'm like, I do realise that whatever this stinky mustachioed guy living in the UK talking to a camera says is not going to impact the game. I'm kidding. I'm not really that smelly, despite what my ex says. But yeah, I think if I'm being honest, I think we are a good chance to win this game. I'm sorry for saying that. I'm tipping Carlton purely because my tips are screwed anyway, and maybe there is a little bit of a superstitious element to that. But I do think we're a red hot chance, and I would even go further to say that I think we should win this game. I think back to the optimism I had going again when we played Hawthorn. And like I said, I didn't really expect us to win that game, but I tipped us out of pure defiance. I was like, look at the team, look at the injury list. Hawthorn travelling, young side, maybe vulnerable. Let's give it our best shot. And if we lose but play valiantly, I'll be happy, but I'm tipping us. If I look at that logic that I had going into that game and apply it to this game, well, this should be a much easier opponent considering their injuries. So if I'm going to apply that harsh standard to we should be winning this game with the team we have, it probably applies here too, right? Because our team, on paper, I've been saying for a while, I think it's been underachieving, which is reflected in the change of coach. Somewhere along the line, West Coast started performing way below what the team should be producing, and that is evidenced by the change in coach. And you look at our injury list comparatively, who are we missing from our best 22? Tom Barras, who wasn't selected to play in this game. Obviously, concussion, hamstring / contract might be the explanation there, but obviously not playing in. When you consider Carlton's outs, he's not really needed this week anyway. But other than that, who on our injury list right now would be in the team? I mean, you could make the argument that we would probably be giving games to Long and Hewitt if they were fit. Maybe Brockman at a stretch, but probably not Brockman, I think, if we're fully fit. And Long and Hewitt are developing youngsters who may or may not actually be, best 22 on pure quality. So long story short, our injury list is very good. And I think we have the tools to beat Carlton. And I don't think the tools or lack thereof has been the reason where we've faltered so much this year. I think it's been psychological. So that's really where this game's going to come down to. And there's a lot of ingredients to suggest we're going to come out and play well, right? Okay, so good form, big occasion this game, and we might sense a kill. So I'm cautiously optimistic. So let's talk about Carlton. I suppose we'll first start with what happened last time we met. Usually, when I do the last time we met segment of my previews, it's almost not worth looking at because our team has changed so much and the injury crisis was bad. This time it's the inverse. Well, both actually apply at the same time, where Carlton, their form against us over the last 2 games have been beltings. Kerno, I think, has kicked 19 goals across those 2 games. We lost by 71 at Marvel and 108 at Optus last year. But their team is so different that it's not really worth looking at that either, other than to acknowledge that it didn't go well. And the last time we've beaten Carlton was actually in Sydney in 2021. I remember that game. And I really thought we might have our season back on track when that happened. So, bad form line against Carlton. I do particularly remember, I was in New York when we lost by 108 at Optus, so I don't remember that game at all, really. But the Marvel one, I do remember. I think we were like 9 goals down at quarter time and then somehow arrested the margin. Anyway, not really too much worth looking at there. So let's go through who they're going to be missing. So there's no Mackay or Kerno, which is handy. What does kind of help them is there's a bit of rain forecast for Sunday. I don't know the extent to which, and obviously the forecast can change, but wet weather footy means that disadvantage of no Mackay and Kerno might be diminished slightly. There's also no Martin and Fogarty from last week. Both were injured, both forwards. And from last week as well, Jordan Boyd, who was a pretty good little player, and Adam Sard are out with injury as well. So looking at who might play key forward for them, they've selected Harry Lemmy on the extended bench. I'm recording this before the final teams come out, but they don't really have a key forward selected in that team, so Harry Lemmy might make his debut. The other option they have is playing Mitch McGovern forward a bit. I think they've selected Akaway. I don't know how to pronounce that. I think he's a tall defender. And Chincotta is kind of like a medium-sized defender, so maybe those guys go back and McGovern goes forward. These are little positional tweaks Carlton could do, but obviously severely depleted. Now, their midfield's not looking too depleted. I think Chera's missing, but I think we still have to acknowledge that Walsh and Cripps are going to be big threats in this game, both champion players. Cripps has had a fantastic season. Sam Walsh is a star. And also we'll consider the other players they have out that are not injured from last week, but Sam Doherty obviously did his ACL in opening round, I think. Tom de Koning has been a huge playmaker for them. Cottrell, Marchbank, Silvani, Cunningham, Fantasia, all guys probably around the 22 that you'd expect would possibly be playing in this game or all injured. So severely depleted whilst acknowledging their midfield still packs a punch with Walsh and Cripps. So let's talk about the age of the selected team, which I think is worth noting here. Bearing in mind, it includes the extended bench, and so these numbers are out slightly. Or at least they will change when the team shrinks to a bench of 4 or 5 tomorrow. But look at the average games of experience. West Coast have an average games experience of 100 and an average age of 25 and a half. Carlton's average games played per player is 70. which puts them as the least experienced team in the competition based on their selected 22 this week. Or I should say their selected 26. That number you'd think will bump up. So if, say, like Akaway, who I don't think has played a game, Lemmy hasn't played a game, if those guys don't make the team, that number will come up, but we're still more experienced than this week. They've also selected 10 players who have played less than 50 games to our 7. So we should be winning this game. You shouldn't just look at age, obviously. If it was just looking at age, the ladder would look very different to what it currently looks at. But it's more demonstrating how overexposed Carlton are going into this game, that they are suddenly gone from a mature team to the youngest team in the competition, and we know exactly what that's like. So usually I do a stats dive on the opposition going into this game and seeing where we could win, and I don't know how useful that is because of how depleted they are. I'll run through it though. In the last 5 weeks, which is important to note that Carlton's last 5 weeks have been poor. They've still been 7th in contested ball, so they're not bad in that stat, and usually that's a good key indicator for us, except last week where we lost like every key stat and won. In terms of uncontested ball, which is another area we get butchered in, they're pretty similar to us. We're both below average, so that probably bodes well. They're bottom 6 in inside 50 differential. We are last though. Both of us are the bottom 2 sides for tackles inside 50, which will be interesting in a wet weather game if it does transpire that way. And they're still top half for scores from turnover. They're still relatively strong in that stat, considering they've only won 1 of those last 5 games. So that's probably all the stats worth looking at for this game. They don't have a really strong uncontested game over the last 5, and that bodes well for us. This is normally where we get exposed. And contested ball, on the other hand, another area that, when we win that stat or break even, we play well generally. They are still pretty good at that, despite over the last 5 weeks being not a good team. So just something to consider. But overall, it doesn't really inform my prediction. Before we wrap it up, we'll just talk about the changes. So Harry Edwards has returned along with Petricelli and Hutchinson to an extended bench. That will shrink by 3 players tomorrow. 3 players, and then the sub will be selected from the other 5. No Barras selected for this week. So Petricelli was one of the best, in fact, probably the best Waffle Eagle this week, so he's been rewarded for some form there. How does he actually come into the team is a little bit tougher to answer when you consider Gaff is obviously definitely playing. So who do we drop for Harry Edwards? Well, I think if you're dropping like for like, then it probably makes sense to drop Witherden. The other option is Clay Hall, who's been subbed on and subbed off in his 2 games with minimal impact. He's had a bit of a taste. We could do this thing where we say Clay Hall have 1 week in the waffle and then come back when we drop Gaff next week, because obviously Gaff is playing his final game this week. So you could drop Clay Hall and keep Witherden in the team. I can understand why some of you won't like that. And your other alternative is Witherden. I'll be happy with whatever Scully decides is the right team balance, because I really want to win this game. I know that our focus should be developing the youth, but is it the worst thing if Clay Hall goes and plays a full game? You have to consider as well, Clay Hall hasn't played a full game of footy for at least a fortnight now. So, maybe it is better for him to get a full run in the legs, come back into the team for Geelong. Maybe we make Harvey Johnston the sub or something like that. So, with that all being said, I'm still not going to tip us, but I will be disappointed if we don't win this game, or at least I could foresee Carlton playing well. It's such a weird season that they could have a response. They could surge. They could play out of their skins because their season's on the line. It would be funny to break Fremantle hearts. If they do that and we still challenge them, I think we should still be able to challenge them. If we get rolled over in this game, that would be a disaster. And I made the comment last couple of days ago on the Schofield video. Schofield probably can't do heaps to win himself the job in the last 2 weeks, but he can do things to hurt us. And what would that look like? What would it look like to hurt his chances of taking over as senior coach if we fumble this game badly? And like I said, if both teams play well and we lose, that's not so much what it will cost him. But if we roll over and get beaten by Carlton, which I hate to say it, is not out of the question with this team. I am optimistic and I will go into this game hoping and believing we can win, but let's just say hypothetically Carlton win this game by 5 goals and we don't really get close to winning, then that will just demonstrate that nothing's changed over the course of the season. And Schofield, in the 7 or 8 weeks he has as senior coach, he would love to look at this as a body of work and say, look, we changed something. Something changed in the second half of the year. So there is a bit on the line for Schofield in terms of that performance. But like I said, if we win, he probably won't get that much credit either. So it's a tough position to be in. I think as an Eagles fan and as a person, and I see this with other people as well, sometimes we just try not to get our hopes up. so that we're not as disappointed if we fall short this week. And I can't help but have that instinct, and I'm trying to fight that instinct, because I think at the end of the day, even if you tell yourself you're not getting your hopes up, it doesn't really diminish the disappointment when things don't go your way. So I'm fully all in on this game this week. I'm going to hope that we win. I'm going to barrack for a win. Doesn't matter with our draft position. That sounds redundant because I always barrack for a win, but this one's different. I think there's a level of expectation with this game. And while we've been burned in the past, I'm going to believe in the best possible outcome. So I don't know if I want to say verbally the Eagles will win this game, but hopefully you're picking that up in subtext. But up the Eagles. Let me know in the comments what you think, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.